Hi everybody, thanks for joining me tonight. I appreciate you clicking on this video. I'm going to talk to you tonight about my 5 favorite books for 2024. I read probably 70 books. That includes ebooks and audiobooks and physical books this year. I think it was 73 in total. So I narrowed it down to 5. I do have some honorable mentions. So yeah, as I said, I narrowed it down to 5 of my favorite books for this year. They're 5-star reads for me. So I'm a really hard rater. I don't read books that I don't like. So for me, a 5-star is like, wow, like a 5-star. I've written some notes about it. I'm going to try and keep this brief and go through it as quickly as possible. Before I get started, though, I will do my honorable mentions. Normal People by Sally Rooney was one of them. I liked it, but it wasn't quite 5-star for me. So Normal People by Sally Rooney. A lot of people, I'm sure, know what it's about. So one girl's popular, one girl's not popular. They're in high school, they strike up a conversation. And then, they become friends anyway. So it's I guess a coming of age book, I guess you would say. It was good. Not bad. The other one I think that everybody's also heard about is The Silent Patient. Yes, I'm late with this one, by Alex Michaelides. Sorry if I got that wrong. The Silent Patient. It was good. I read The Fury by him as well. I think I kind of like The Fury better, but this one was really good. It's a murder mystery. Yeah, murder mystery, I guess you'd call it. Psychological. This one is another honorable mention. Bright Young Women, Jessica Knoll. No, New York's bestseller, girl, Jessica Knoll. Yeah, Bright Young Women. This one was good. So this one's about a serial killer. See, this one I remember quite clearly. This was about a serial killer. And actually it's about girls at a college or university that get murdered, and one survives who was there when it occurred. And the story actually is about it's not about a serial killer, it's about the murders of these girls and how they coped, or the one that survived, I should say, copes with it afterwards, and how they try to find out who the murderer was. They don't sensationalize the murderer, which is good, and it really brings to focus how we tend to say, like, not positive things about the murderers in certain cases. Anyways, it's a good book. I liked it. It's worth reading, but it wasn't quite a 5-star for me. So without further ado, my 5 stars for the year of 2024. Did I say 2025 at the beginning? I think I did. I meant 2024, obviously, because we're in 2025 now. So my favorites for the year. So I'm just going to say it quickly, and then I'll kind of tell you about them briefly. Again, I don't want my videos to be too long. I don't want to bore people. And keep in mind that a lot of these books, like some of the books I read, are current, but I do read books that are quite old. Like a few of these are, I think, 2012, 2013. But why not, right? So hopefully you'll discover a book that you really like, that is easy to come by because it's older. So the Beartown Trilogy, I've spoken about this in a previous video. So the Beartown Trilogy is the Beartown, Us Against You, and The Winners by Fredrik Backman. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Talk about that after. The Covenant of Water made it to my list, and these are in no particular order, just the order that I read them. And the Beartown Trilogy, it's 3 books, but I'm counting that as one choice because they were all 5-star. That's not true. Beartown was 4 stars, and Us Against You and The Winners were 5 stars. So the other book I want to talk to you about is The Covenant of Water. Again, I'm sure everybody knows about this book. Abraham Verghese wrote that one. The Unlikely Pilgrimage, sorry, I read this a while ago, of Harold Fry by Rachel Joyce. We're going to talk about that one a bit. The Magic Strings of Frankie Pesto by Mitch Albom. Mitch Albom's now an automatic read for me. And I actually finally read Sarah J. Maas, A Court of Mist and Fury and A Court of Wings and Ruin. So that's book 2 and book 3 I finally read this year. And I'll talk about that a bit. So those are my five plus favorite books for the year 2024. So I'm just gonna have some tea before we get going. And great, let's get going. A lot of these books, I shouldn't say a lot of these books, most of these books I do have, but quite a few I don't actually keep because I like to lend them out to my friends so that they could read them and enjoy them. Hold on. Hi, Libby. Yes, I see you. Come on, get down. Down. There we go. Sorry about that. Beartown Trilogy. I do have all three of them. This is the second one I read this year, Us Against You. And I read The Winners this year. This is a heck of a book. And yes, so I am using the cat tower to mount my camera, which wasn't a good idea because my cat is playing on the cat tower. So excuse the movement. Okay, hopefully he'll stay still soon. Yeah, give me a sec. Okay, so we're back. The cat's taking a break off the cat tower. So, Beartown Trilogy. I've had a video about this, previous video about this. So it's about a small town. It's written by Frederick Bachman. It's in a small town, a hockey town. They're in love with their hockey team, their junior hockey team. They have a chance to go to the juniors championships. Something horrible happens, and in this town what happens to one person kind of happens to everybody because it's a small town and everybody knows everybody, or they're related to each other, and everybody loves the hockey team. So anything that happens to somebody on the hockey team, or if something tragic happens, which it does, it affects everything. So that's the first book. The second book, I'll be honest with you, I read it at the beginning of the year. I don't know what it's about. I think it deals a lot with the politics behind the hockey team and the repercussions for this horrible event that occurred. So the third book is The Winners. Again, it's too much to discuss in a short time. I'll just say this, that there's big character development in this book. You fall in love with these people. I feel like I know them. I read the second one and the third one. Actually, that's not true. I read the second one right away. The third one, I actually wanted to wait because I felt that once it was finished, then I kind of lose these people, if that makes sense. So if you like that sort of thing, character development and really feeling like I cried, I laughed, I got upset during this book, reading these books, then it's a book for you. The next one I'm going to talk about is The Covenant of Water by Abraham Verghese. This one, I think a lot of people know, so it's a hell of a book. It spans multiple generations in southern India, starting in the 1900s. South India. So it's about a 12-year-old girl who gets bestowed, I think that's the right word. She gets sent away to be married to this like 40-ish year old widow who has a 2-year-old child, which, these things happened back then. So it shows her life growing up generation after generation. So the Covenant of Water, what it is this one particular family, they have this tragic curse almost where somebody drowns in their family, like each generation somebody drowns, and it's like really like weird things. They have this really weird thing with water. But the book deals with like caste, politics, drug addiction, family, of course. It deals a lot with family, mental health, misogynistic families, leprosy. It deals with a lot. It's a huge book. I don't know I'm sure you've seen it, but it's like, I don't know, over 700 pages, I think. It's a really thick book. And but you never feel bored. Like it never gets boring, it never drags on, you never like flip through quickly because it's just too much. It's so important. The big thing though, I wish I would have done perhaps, is I would have like written down the name. Actually, I did that in my notes. I wrote down the names of people and like how they're related, because I felt it's relevant. One last note about the book is I heard from friends that it makes a really good audiobook. So if you're more into an audiobook, then go for it. So the third one I'm going to talk about is one I don't have a physical copy of because I recently lent it to somebody. And this one was published in 2012. So we're talking, you know, a while ago. The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry by Rachel Joyce. I'll show a picture of it right there. So I read this again at the beginning of the year. I seem to have better luck at the beginning of the year reading really good books. This one was given to me or lent to me by somebody, or recommended by somebody out of the blue. And it's really not a book that I would have picked up otherwise, but I'm so glad I did, because it was, there's the cat again. Hold on. Okay, so I changed spots in hopes that the cat doesn't bother me here. So we'll see. Let's continue. The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry by Rachel Joyce. So this is a book I read because someone recommended it to me, and I'm really glad they did because I loved it. It was a really feel-good book. It takes place in a small town in England, countryside in England somewhere, and an older gentleman gets a letter from an ex coworker, an ex-coworker who's in hospice, dying of cancer, and he decides to write back to this woman, and then when he goes to bring it to the post box, decides that it's not good enough, so he's going to bring it to the next post box. And then something happens along the way, and he makes this huge decision that he's going to actually walk all the way to her hospice, which is 600 miles away, to deliver it to her personally. And so this is his adventures along the way, who he meets, and his reflection on life and fatherhood and being a husband and life in general, and people who he meets along the way. And of course, press gets involved at one point in time, and he gets a little entourage of people who follow him. So it's not a Forrest Gump kind of moment, but it's a really good book. It's either going to hit you or it's going to be a complete miss, because I recommended it to a few people and most people liked it. But there was a couple of people that are like, nah, wasn't for me. So keep that in mind. The next one was published in 2015, and it's The Magic Strings of Frankie Pesto by Mitch Albom. So Mitch Albom is best known for Tuesdays with Morrie, I think it's called. He's written quite a few, and I read quite a few. This was my first, I believe this was my first one that I read by him, and it got me hooked. So this one is about music, obviously. So Frankie Pesto, and it's written from the narrator is music as an entity of its own, and it's done in kind of interview style. It's done in interview style, and it takes place over like the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. Well, his music career is the 40s, 50s, and the 60s. So he was an orphan, and he was found in rather crazy circumstances, and he was brought up by a music teacher who gave him a love for music and also endowed to him 5 magical strings, guitar strings. And so we follow his life, and with those 5 people that he helped over the years with his strings, that's a complicated part of it. It's not really necessary, but I cried. I was really rooting for him. It touches on, like, you know, I don't know, Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry. Like, it touches on real people that we know, so it feels like it's a real story. I don't know if, no, it can't be a real story, but it feels like it's a real story because the interviews are with like actual musicians, like famous musicians, and how he kind of like touched their lives over the years. It's a lot of fun. I happen to like music, play piano, but you don't have to in order to like this book. I think it's a 5-star for me, and he's become like a automatic read for me. The next one I'm going to talk about is, again, I'm a little late to the party for this one, but it's Sarah J. Maas, A Court of Mist and Fury I read this year, and A Court of Wings and Ruin. So that's the second and the third book in A Court of Thorns and Roses. This isn't my genre that I would really read, but because it was so popular everywhere last year or the year before, I don't know, time flies, I read the first one, and then I was like, okay, yeah, I can see the attraction. I really like it, but I was like, nah, it's enough for me. So I let it slide, and I just read the first one. Then a friend of mine told me, you've got to read the second one. And so I did. I read the second one, and then I was hooked. Third one for sure. I don't know why I haven't read the fourth one. You let me know if the fourth one's worth reading. I'm sure it is. And so I don't really think I need to tell you what this is about. It's fantasy, fairies, you know, it's about fairies and werewolves and, well, not werewolves. Is he considered a werewolf? I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess he is. Anyways, and about, you know, fantasy lands, and there's struggles, and there's bad guys and good guys, and yeah, it's really good. The human world and how they're being threatened, and so, and how they're supposed to coexist and what have you. So yeah, I'm like 53, 54, 53, 53 years old, 54 years old. And so it's probably not geared towards me, but I don't know. I liked it. I read it and I enjoyed it. So yeah, so you might too. So that's it. So yeah, so that's it. So those are my 5 favorite picks for the year. I did audiobooks as well in a separate video if you're interested in listening to that. I don't know why I decided to do audiobooks separate from physical books, but I did. And I think this year is going to be a great year for reading. I'm excited. I started doing YouTube videos a few months ago, and I like the idea of it keeping me more engaged into my reading, and recording it and sharing it with everybody. And again, my goal is to hopefully get you to find a book that you would otherwise not read and really enjoy. So that's it for me for tonight. Bye. Take care.